friend, Mr. Engel, for calling this important hearing. The United States has key national security interests in the Arabian Peninsula, which is why we spent decades cultivating close partnerships with the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. We've had a long history of working together to advance our shared strategic interests. Even so, each of these partnerships has its own nuances and complexities. We've often encouraged these partners to make improvements on areas such as human rights and religious freedom, such as through our annual State Department reports. We've also had long-standing concerns about terror financing and other support for terror emanating from the Gulf. We are grateful for the progress that has been made in recent years, although there's still much work to be done. And like many, I was heartened to hear about the reforms on the horizon in Saudi Arabia, such as lifting the ban on women driving. In the context of this hope for the kingdom's future, I was both appalled and deeply saddened by the news of Jamal Khashoggi's murder. Jamal's murder was a major setback in our relationship with Saudi Arabia, a gruesome and disturbing crime that sadly showed how much further the Saudis need to go. Nothing like this crime can happen again, and everybody responsible must be held accountable. This fall, we heard distressing reports that women's rights activists have been not only imprisoned but tortured. We need to see serious changes in the Saudis' behavior with respect to dissidents and expatriates to regain our trust. The lessons of this terrible event needs to be that intimidation and violence by any government against peaceful dissent will be met with strong disapproval by responsible nations. All of our witnesses have distinguished records of U.S. government service working on Middle Eastern issues. Amid daily reports about the fragility of the United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen's ongoing peace efforts, I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about what the United States can do to bring a sustainable political solution to the conflict that will help mitigate the urgent humanitarian crisis. Unfortunately, today's discussion of the Yemen war is complicated by the markup of what I believe to be an ill-advised bill. I will say more later, but I am alarmed that we are abusing a privileged war powers procedure to address questions where U.S. forces are not involved in combat. Not only does it fail to meaningfully address the security cooperation issues we face in the region, it also creates a dangerous precedent that could disrupt U.S. security cooperation with partners all around the world. With that said, the number of civilian deaths during this conflict is deeply concerning. Improvements in humanitarian access are critical to preventing the crisis from worsening. Every effort must be taken to eliminate civilian casualties from airstrikes. I hope this hearing will contribute to the conversation about what applicable and appropriate steps the United States can take to decrease the threat that this conflict poses to civilians rather than adding fuel to the fire of an unproductive conversation about war powers. I fear that many of the recent discussions regarding the Yemen conflict have obscured the incredibly damaging role that the Houthis are playing. Recent reports have documented the Houthis' diversion of vital food aid from people in need and the brutal torture of detainees. Iran is also playing an incredibly harmful role in this conflict by supplying the Houthis with ballistic missiles and other forms of support. The UN itself has reported that Iran has violated UN Security Council resolutions through their support for the Houthis. I hope our witnesses today will discuss how the United States and our partners can effectively respond to Iran's role in this conflict. We can also not lose sight of the fact that significant terrorist threats continue to emanate out of Yemen. Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates testified last week that al-Qaeda affiliate in Yemen, AQAP, remains one of the largest and most capable terrorist groups in the world. We are grateful to our Gulf partners for their help in countering this threat. I dealt with AQAP and their external operations for many years as chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and I hope our witnesses can speak to whether our current counterterrorism strategy in Yemen is as effective as it could be, or whether any changes need to be made. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.